Hello everybody, Edwin Learnard here. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be deviating from my usual Taurus rising routine. I know it's getting kind of redundant, I sound like a broken record. But anyway, I'm going to talk about someone you might have heard of. I'm going to be dissertating and delineating his natal chart. His name is Dr. Drew Pinsky, and most of you know him on the Dr. Drew show. It's called, actually it's Dr. Drew On Call on the HLN network, and he's a radio, TV personality, addiction medical specialist, and an American board certified internist. And what he does is he kind of delves into psychological reasoning, behind why people might commit, heinous acts, corrupt things, just doing, going into, possible medical conditions, as well as why people might, get into unscrupulous behavior and doing things of a, criminal nature. And anyway, he's always, he does a lot of, analyzing on this stuff and analysis. But now I'm going to turn the tables today, because I'm going to do some analysis on Dr. Drew, and not psychoanalysis, because, that's not what I'm here for, obviously. I'm here to, when I say psycho, I mean, psychological analysis. I'm being facetious, but what I'm doing is I'm going to analyze him astrologically and give a natal chart analysis. Well, as a lot of you know, Dr. Drew is Sun in Virgo. His birthday is September 4th, 1958. He was born in Pasadena, California. I didn't have a time available for him, so what I did was I drew up, no pun intended, a solar chart, where I pretty much, very closely, I put the, the sun sign, by the ascendant degree, and basically did, calculated a chart that would have, the sun and the ascendant at the, at the same degree. So anyway, the first thing I want to talk about is that his sun is in Virgo, and obviously this can, accounts for him being very analytical, someone that's very punctilious with details. He could be very, obviously inquisitive. He can ask a lot of questions, but he knows the ones to ask. Ability to analyze and criticize, very meticulous, systematic, neat and organized. I bet his, being a Virgo, I bet his house is probably immaculate. I bet he's very, you see how he is, not a hair out of place. I could see his home being like super clean, and this gives him a very reliable and punctual nature. Now the next thing he has, his moon is in Taurus, and this adds stability to him. Obviously it emphasizes the punctuality and reliability, and works well with his sun in Virgo. He may have, and well, I'm sure he does, based on what he, he's the fact that he's a celebrity, has good financial acumen, possessions, things of a monetary nature, and pets may be connected with his emotional needs. Shows that he could be tenacious, persevering, and on the negative side may be obstinate and stubborn from time to time. May have a strong, somewhat aversion to change, at least more so than your typical Sun in Virgo personality. The majority of his planets are in fixed signs, and this can make him very fixed in purpose. Then your typical Sun in Virgo, it shows that maybe he could be somewhat intractable and intransigent, and may need to be more flexible from time to time. Others may be the ones that are apt to compromise in relationships, as opposed to him. This could give strong persistence and single-mindedness. He has Pisces on the 7th house cusp in his solar chart, and this could show where many relationships are with people that are habitual drug users and alcoholics. Now, I'm not saying friends, but on his show, he forms, quote unquote, I guess, his relationships with these people, and makes connections with them, and obviously tries to help people the best he can in that in those situations. And it shows in relationships he is apt to be very self-sacrificing and philanthropic. He has 4 planets in the 12th house, and this shows that a lot of things is the emphasis on things connected with 12th house, Pisces type matters, alcoholics, drug users, things with incarceration, people that have certain restrictions, limitations, those that are unfortunate, less fortunate than others, such as the oppressed and impoverished. And he obviously has a lot of compassion toward these things, and something in someone like a person, say like I was talking about before, restrictions which can include disability, such as a child with autism. And I think this is where we see a lot of that activity with him. He has Mercury conjunct Pluto, and I mean, this can indicate why Dr. Drew emphasizes psychology in a lot of his communications. It shows that his mind can be probing, very intense, incisive, investigative, able to strongly penetrate superficial facades and see the real thing that's going on beneath the surface, and read people very quickly, and which obviously he does based on his profession. He has his Mercury in Leo, and this shows that despite having the Sun in Virgo, his Mercury in Leo can be very commanding and authoritative in the way that they speak. Despite his Sun being in mutable Virgo, he doesn't mind necessarily talking about himself periodically, but is able to do this in a way which doesn't come across as overbearing. His Mercury conjuncts Venus, and this shows the strong ability to be tactful and diplomatic in his communications with others. Very respectful to his guests. He seems like he gives them a lot of latitude, and more so than a lot of other, I guess you could say, like talk show hosts. He can disagree without coming across as disputatious and being, without being belligerent. Very, it shows to me that he's, equitable and fair-minded as well, as with his communications with his guests on the show. His Moon conjuncts Mars in his chart, and this can indicate that emotions may at times be acrimonious, can be impulsive emotionally, perhaps feelings can be very passionate and intense. People that have this placement can show much fortitude and courage, and it shows the impulsiveness emotionally. Like he could basically, from time to time, be kind of react to something very quickly, an emotional manner. His Sun conjuncts Pluto, and this could further emphasizes the strong interest in psychology, ability to instantaneously get a bead on others, and strong interest, being enamored with what makes others tick. This could be somebody that I guess you could say abhors social injustice. He might very interested in getting to the bottom of matters, and understanding very quickly the reasons why somebody might do something, especially if it's connected with possibly either psychological or sinister reason. Maybe You know, the fact that he has the Sun and Mercury conjunct Pluto, I mean, I don't really ever hear him talk about this, but it makes me wonder if maybe he has any interest in, you know, anything connected with astrology, perhaps. I mean, maybe he does, maybe he doesn't, but it does makes me wonder. I never heard of anything, but perhaps he's got some, you know, astrological and or occult, you know, interest, possibly. Well, lean more maybe astrological, but anyway, people, that will conclude part one of the Dr. Drew natal chart. And other thing I want to get, in case I didn't say it earlier, I forget if I did or not, that this is based on Western astrology and the Placidus house system I used when I did his solar chart. But two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel, but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis on a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because a person astrologically is the sum of all their components in their natal chart, and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.